helps me to really pursue what I love and enjoy. I think outside of my personal preference in the space, I think more broad topics, things such as data utilization and, as Keith just mentioned, personalization through AI, I think are really exciting narratives for us to, as marketers, allow us to craft stories and truly build out programs that resonate with our consumers. And I also should note the measurement side of the world as well. I think as our practice matures, it's empowering to know that our investment can really drive attitudinal and purchase-based outcomes in both the short and long term.
Sounds great. No, makes a lot of sense. I'd love to understand from your brand perspective, what are some things that Chobani is doing differently with media to better connect with consumers during this time?
Yeah, so some of the things that Chobani is doing from a media practice perspective is one, to decouple the brand and the shopper marketing worlds and really look holistically at how we're utilizing media to connect those different touch points in a consumer's journey to purchasing our products. As we expand our number of categories that we enter, and as we launch new exciting products even, media is also really key for us to understanding how to best be impactful from the start and drive fast trial, ultimately at product launch, gain new buyers, and really from a loyalty perspective, hopefully build repeat purchase at our specific customers where we have distribution, or through the many new purchase channels such as e-commerce, direct to consumer even.
Sounds great. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing differently to connect with Chobani customers online through e-commerce? Obviously, everyone dialed up efforts last year, and just curious into what are you doing differently this year, coming off of last year, just to better connect with customers online?
Yeah, I would say that 2020 was definitely a year of a lot of learning and growth for us as a broader marketing entity, and specifically in the media world. We've really began to look at a lot more bottom-up approach in how we're talking to consumers. And for us, the again, new product launches that we have, and the increased focus for consumers and going to e-commerce platforms, for instance, to find their Chobani products, has really led us to thinking small and building up programs from the ground up to, as we think about touch points across video, TV space, for instance, how those can best impact those bottom funnel directions. I do think, though, to note that we still have a lot of work to do. We definitely don't have any silver bullets here, but we've definitely seen a shift in how we are, again, connecting the brand and shopper worlds, and then also really how we're building from a customer level up to influence the consumer journey.
Makes a lot of sense. There's so much buzz going around third-party cookies going away. How do I maintain customer engagement? Kind of, make sure that I'm connecting with the customers at the right time, right place, without those third-party pixels. Can you talk a little bit about your point of view, how you feel about that? What are you guys doing differently, again, knowing that many are moving away from third-party tracking?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously privacy and the crumbling of the cookie are very hot topics right now. And I think first and foremost, I should mention that I think it is the correct thing to do from both a consumer myself, as well as just in thinking how privacy and the protection of data is increasingly going to be important in years to come. I think the biggest pros and cons for consumers and brands, consumers, I think, win in the short term and the long term. They're protecting themselves from the things that they might not even fully know or understand. They're getting less intrusive connection to the media space overall. And in the long term, they're still getting those personalized experiences that can ultimately empower them and educate them in the space and lead them to action. I think with that empowerment too, they're perhaps going to be more amicable to the advertising touch points throughout their day. And that as a media manager is extremely exciting. And I want in every touch point to a consumer them to be actively engaged with and be excited to engage with the Chobani brand. From a brand and advertiser perspective, though, it's obviously tough. This is by no means an easy fix, and I think from a Chobani standpoint, we're lucky that we're not a digital first advertiser who has really leaned heavily on remarketing and retargeting, re-engagement to drive those business outcomes. We have, again, traditionally been a very top down, driving attitudinal and really letting the branded house help educate consumers on the new to market Chobani products. So what we're seeing in the short term is, definitely a deprecation, and that's largely a reach problem, not necessarily an audience problem for us. There's an opportunity for us, though, in the short term to think through our consumers' identity. And what we've begun to do is really think about the contextual self-selected audience identifiers and think through how we can objectively measure those audience makeups. So we feel well positioned in the short term, and I think over the long term for Chobani, we're really going to want to think about, again, how we can build that just consumer touch point centered on trust. And that is, with all of the data coming through and all of the permissions that consumers need to opt into or opt out of, it definitely needs to have a people first mindset for the betterment of both parties.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a little bit around how are you working with walled gardens and other kind of first party data providers to just enhance that customer experience? Are you looking at those partnerships differently? Interested to understand how you're thinking about that.
Yes, we are absolutely recognizing that these are really strategic partnerships that are going to play a central role in us bridging that gap that I just mentioned, and really allow us a way to expand our audiences and unlock new insights for better, more targeted audiences. And so the key for us here is collaboration and adapting to these changing times. We're really looking to, in our upfront agreements with key media partners or even with retailer networks, to have data sharing, data utilization top of mind in our even just broader MSAs, SOWs even. And what we're trying to do is again, make sure that we're embracing this challenge and trying to adapt to the best we can. I think companies can really work and partner with a lot of great first party data providers who are now even more important in the broader media landscape, and ultimately use them to, for instance, gain access to purchase data or to use new and improved marketing and advertising strategies through just, again, rich new data sets. Of course, there's challenges in this as well. I think one very interesting place for Chobani specifically is the idea of a data clean room, and we're definitely keeping this very top of mind and exploring how we can best set ourselves up from a data infrastructure perspective to really shine in this new world.
That's interesting. Have you, as part of maybe your clean room efforts, have you also started to focus on more direct to consumer efforts too? And anything unique there that you're doing direct to consumer that would be interesting for all of us to understand? I know it's things have changed so quickly over the past few months, and there's so many direct to consumer sites. Myself and my teenagers are going to this year that I never would have thought they were even aware of those sites. But I'd love to understand a little bit about your brand sites and how you're using those in order to just better connect with customers again.
Yes. So from a D2C perspective, Chobani has, as of earlier this year, rolled out our first D2C site where consumers are allowed to go and directly purchase our Chobani Oat Milk Barista Edition and get the cases of oat milk shipped directly to their doorstep, which is very exciting for us. And especially as a traditionally refrigerated brand, a very new step for us, where it was definitely a learning experience for myself and the broader group. We are, again, somewhat hamstrung by cold storage and shipping that will one day definitely be a great a great way for us to multifacetedly add new avenues to how we are selling our various products and various categories. But in the short term, we are somewhat limited in how we can approach the D2C space. I do think overall, though, it's absolutely a great way to, from a consumer perspective, purchase new items and have that additional stream. And it's also a great way to just be an additive avenue for existing brands outside of e-com brick and mortar sales.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm sure it's no small feat, right, in order to get refrigerated items into homes on, smaller basket sizes. So makes
Yes.
good challenge to solve for.
Yep, and just to speak to the small basket size, I think it is exciting as someone, just as a general consumer, to see some brands that I personally like. Milk Bar is a good example, for instance, who has been able to, in this past year, roll out their D2C efforts, ship cakes nationwide, plug directly into other e-commerce spaces like Uber Eats even. All that to say, yeah, they're a little bit more fortunate in that they are at a higher price point, but that's not to say that Chobani won't one day be there. And there's some interesting ways from a marketing perspective to bundle baskets, ship out new items, perhaps partner with other consumer good manufacturers, food and beverage companies to deliver experiences, recipe bundles, for instance, that can bring some joy to our consumers in a different way than their traditional purchase behavior.
That's great. That's great. Good for you guys. I want to ask a few questions just around measurement. That's another hot topic, especially as it relates to, again, kind of cookies going away, first party data. And I'm just interested to understand how you're holding media providers accountable on the measurement front. So I'll start there, and then I love to kind of drill down from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just to start to give everybody on this call a lay of our measurement land, we on the Chobani side typically look at our measurement through the business-centered toolkit that we have at our disposal, and then some of the more media or marketing specific or centered tools. So from a business standpoint, our commercial mix model that we work in tandem with analytic partners, our sales data sources, both on a national level as well as a customer specific level, all of those things directly leading back to and supporting how we are affecting the broader business. From a more media or marketing centered toolkit perspective, we're really trying to piece together things like sales lift studies, brand lift studies, new to buyer brand studies, all of those things that, of course, all of my peers are well versed in. But I think to answer your original question and how we're driving accountability in the space, it's really all about upfront expectations and longer term roadmaps to what we do want out of our relationships with measurement partners and also with the media partners that we're investing heavily with. And so as we approach those tables, we're really coming with a focus on things like incrementality, understanding differentiation in buyer type, whether they're a new to brand buyer or perhaps a repeat loyalist, and really trying to disaggregate a lot of the media tactics that we have to really parse out the details there. And what I mean by that is we don't want to just view the entire channel of social, for instance. We want to really dive in and understand with this measurement solution or with this media partner, what are the individual tactics, formats, creative level, even details that are truly driving the broader program success. And again, that's all about just being upfront, making sure that you have a roadmap and discussing with some of these partners and keeping them accountable throughout the way, of course.
I think one of the biggest challenges we hear across brands is just how do you measure holistically? And curious, I know there's probably not a silver bullet out there, but just curious how do you tackle that challenge?
It is a challenge that I have not figured out yet, nor have my peers at Chobani. But how we have approached it is as definitely in a walk capacity, really trying to piece together different pieces in almost a patchwork. And that is in the short term, what we can, I'll say, afford in resource time, et cetera. But longer term, we're really going to ultimately, hopefully, set ourselves up for success to grow in how we're approaching our investment. And what I mean by that is we really want to understand the more long-term value of our brand's equity and what that means for our expanded presence within the grocery aisle. We want to make sure that we are building out key questions along the way to truly, in an iterative fashion, work towards getting a more complete blanket of measurement. But in the short term, at least, we're really leaning heavily on our commercial mix model and working with the analytic partners team to really understand not just media, but other marketing levers, other company-wide levers, trade, et cetera, and understand how they are ultimately leading to both initial effective volume as well as incremental volume as well.
Helpful. How does retail media play into that equation of measurement?
Yeah, so retail media is an increasingly important channel for us as a company. And, I speak for everybody who's listening right now. I'm sure that over the past year, especially, it has become self-evident that retail media networks are here to stay and here to be a very important avenue to, from a media perspective, building exposure and getting people close to purchase point, all the more down the funnel. And so from a retailer network perspective, we are viewing them as both key in, again, that lower funnel approach, but also key in, from a measurement perspective, unlocking data level information at a customer retailer store level, understanding that connection in the e-com space as the e-com has become more important to us, and understanding e-com's influence within both the online space as well as brick and mortar sales. And for us is again, just absolutely important for our longer term growth in growing category, getting new buyers, and expanding our overall footprint within the US.
Yeah, we hear that a lot at Kroger about so many use cases that we're working through, helping brands like yourself, identify the right new customers, and how to efficiently reach those new customers and acquire those customers. How do you see retail media for Chobani evolving over the next few years? So obviously there's, the ability to understand the impact on the immediate retail business on sales and share. But how do you see that evolving as we move into the future?
Yeah, I look at it as extremely important for us to get into baskets first and fast, as quick as possible. Media is really, key in unlocking and winning on those e-com endemic partners and platforms, the Instacarts and Ships of the world. And it's also really key to building an extension from the brick and mortar activations and activity that we're doing on a customer retailer level. What we're seeing on our side is the need for scaled search, and brands are quickly realizing that in the last year that it is obviously extremely important to have that baseline coverage, foundational kind of solid block of search, and potentially utilize that to bring new buyers in from other competitors. We are also increasing our retailer media network scope as well, both as retailer networks capabilities grow and we feel more trusted and impacted by their offerings, and also knowing that we are beginning to see initial signs that they are effective for us as well, which is first and foremost the number one thing that we need to see in selecting a media partner more broadly. And we're also really excited by the data partnerships that exist in the space, and how that's becoming really a norm across every key partner that we work with. Of course, the capabilities are vast now in the space, but we do see a linear progression towards data being unlocked across the board.
Makes sense. Would you ever look at a retail partner as a measurement provider for national media? Are you guys thinking about retail media in that way? Obviously, there's a lot of retailers that like Kroger, like Amazon, like Walmart that have a lot of scale and could provide huge benefits, right, to brands like Chobani to measure not just lower funnel performance media, but also national media to understand customer behavior and how customers are engaging in upper funnel media, whether it's, TikTok or Roku or traditional television. So I'd love perspective on how you're thinking about that from a brand perspective.
Absolutely, and sorry to go on mute there as a ambulance went by, but I do see retailer networks as extremely important to the more holistic measurement at play. I think, again, retailer networks allow us to unlock that customer level data source and also understand those behaviors in the consumer touch points along the way. And I think against like the broader environmental considerations, this is especially important with consumers' buying habits shifting, the crumbling of cookies, and the importance of showing up in brand safe environments as well. All of those things we feel are perhaps in the short term better situated in retailer networks. From a measurement perspective, I'm not sure if it will completely replace or supersede some of the other tools at our disposal that connect into the broader business outcomes that we're hoping to achieve. But I do think it's a great layer for us to connect in there and also over a longer term, again, better understand and determine the typically lower funnel investment that is tied into our perhaps bigger buy-sell agreements.
Makes sense. One of the things we do at Kroger is we do look a lot at our other publishing partners. What are they doing well? What could we do better? I'd love your perspective on what, it could be from a KPM perspective or just retail media in general. What could we be doing better that a traditional publisher is excelling in and that we should be thinking about incorporating into retail media?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think to my previous point about how retailer networks are traditionally viewed in media lead or marketer's eyes as a lower funnel tactic, I think very broadly, there's the need for retail media networks to better connect into the broader picture, both from a measurement capabilities perspective and really just overall just making sure that we're not hyper focused on that consumer customer level. That is absolutely great and key and important for us, but as we're making decisions across the broader media landscape, we really want to understand that bigger connection. I think the detail is great that we have. But again, everything is patchwork. And as we look at other places in the media world, such as at the publisher space, I think there's a little bit more transparency currently on the publisher side of things as opposed to the retailer media network side of things. And it's in my conversations sometimes surprising to see areas such as brand safety, viewability, other diagnostic areas, still not table stakes in planning. And I would urge all retailer media networks to think from the marketer side of the table to understand what are those key things that just need to be basic expectations and managed from the get-go. As in the ad tech space, I think the data utilization and audience sharing areas are headed in the right direction with retail media networks, but I think there's still definitely work to be done there. And from a commerce perspective, thinking through how we can just integrate the touch points in a specific media campaign to truly close the loop and over time grow.
I agree. I think that's a huge opportunity is to really dial up shoppable efforts so that one of the things I appreciate about a lot of the social media networks is their ability to just make buying so seamless. So once they see something they love from an influencer, they can buy it really efficiently. And I think retail media networks can do much faster and more efficient job and connecting the dots there with other major publishers. So agree with you 100% there.
Yep, it's all about going up the funnel, so to speak, and thinking through just the consumer viewpoint of how each of these touch points are a part of a longer story, and ultimately, again, yeah, there's exciting tech evolution such as the shoppable space. I know the new fronts perhaps gave some good examples of this idea top of mind, but yeah, it's all very exciting overall.
Agreed. I think I'll just close out, and I'd love to hear a little bit about what retail networks are doing well. What's retail media doing well and should continue to do, and really expand on as folks like Kroger and others as we look to expand our product portfolio. What should we continue?
Yeah, I think retail media networks have done a really good job in responding to requests from the marketers, brands perspective and what we need to succeed in the space. So developing new ways to find and reach people, for instance, measurement solutions and capabilities. And overall, again, it's seeing a good path to ultimate success and ultimately to answering some of these broader areas that we as marketers need. I think the connection into broader media efforts is also very interesting. And KPM's partnership with Roku is a good example of that, where now in place as I come to the marketplace and think through channels such as CTV, I can buy very comfortably with Roku, knowing that I have unlocked a rich data set through KPM. From a media perspective, in general, the idea of connection and for media to not be a silo is I think extremely important as well. And again, just making sure that things are all connected and holistically looked at, I think is ultimately the best way to drive success over time.
Great. Excellent. Brett, thank you so much. It was good to see you again today. Really appreciate the time. And I don't see any questions in chat. So again, thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Awesome.